So with that, let's start with the great late sage Jane Jacobs' Dark Age Ahead, that sometimes this noble effort lacks staying power when the originator's lost, because there's no functioning community to carry it on. So let's talk about how we can fix that. The definitions of tactical urbanism, dealing with short-term, low-cost, scalable interventions and policies. This is Wikipedia's take. A little different. I like how it's Canadianized with the proper spelling of neighborhoods. But finally, I come to this definition, which is going to be our working definition for the rest of today. A toolbox of temporary to permanent, low-cost, quickly implementable enhancements that engage citizens, remember civitas, remember the Greeks, in making changes to the public realm. So examples of resources that are out there, a ton of stuff online that you can grab. How many of you have seen this guide? Okay, get it. It's your toolbox with all these different things, with the material spec on what you need to carry these interventions out. And as if that's not enough, read these 20 books and you'll be an expert. But this is really the result that we're looking for. The engaged people, it's about our future, really feeling a sense of ownership of the spaces where people live. Guide to the interventions. So what I've done is I've grouped it in these 7 categories with arts and culture, cycling and walking, food and farming, furniture and games, parks, shops, and streets. And we'll go one by one with each of these interventions to give you a sense of your toolkit of what you can do at home. So with that, we'll start with free library. How many of you have one? Good. Just a terrific movement to bring civility, to give people things to do on the streets. This is up in Traverse City, and those are my 2 boys, by the way. So that's a sub-motif of this presentation today. If you see them, the tall one's Edward, the short one's Tom. But it's a great way to activate a space. I encourage you to look into it. Guerrilla Historic Registry. Anyone try this? Good. So instead of spending $10,000 or $100,000 on permanent markers and going through that extensive process, print it out on a piece of paper and tape it to the wall. This is famously the hotel where Al Capone's arch rival, Jack Zuda, stayed in Middlesboro, Kentucky, one of the last towns that I worked in. Of course, all that's left are the steps. But through this, we can tell the story of Jack, and it adds this level of interest by helping people understand the space better. Movie screenings. As Jim shared before, a great way to activate outdoor spaces, but indoor as well. This was a theater that had been closed 30 years. We cleaned, painted, put temporary chairs in, brought a projector and screened It's a Wonderful Life, and reconnected the public with this space that hadn't been used for all those years. Music. The Levitt Foundation, how many are you familiar with that? Great. One of the best groups out there, building community through music, is their creed, which fits in perfectly with what we're doing. They give $25,000 grants, which needs to be matched, to put on 10 free concerts in a neglected public space that is transformed. So remember that. Great way to build community, bring people together. Pop-up museums. So with that, this is an example from Pasadena of a pop-up museum. Where's Pasadena? All right. Cool, but it's okay. You can take credit for it. The term of art is R&D, rip off and duplicate. But it's a great idea in a public space to activate it. And this artist, which I know you'll look into when you get home, has really brought a lot of activism, social activism to her work to talk about timely themes today. I'd encourage all of you to look it up. Pop-up Museum, Pasadena. Sidewalk pianos. And this is an example from Bryant Park. And what I love about their example is they have scheduled acts, Diana, and then the unscheduled programming. One smart thing they did, which I encourage actually too, is get a cover for your piano. It'll last longer, and put wheels on it that could really part it around. Makes it easier. Here's another example with my son Ed from Traverse City. Bike friendly. So we're shifting from arts and culture now to cycling and walking. As you can see, rip off and duplicate. Well, what was good in Texas became good in Kentucky. And this was an example where we just invited a bunch of people out for a community ride. We gave them a little bit of a tour of the town, and it was an incredible community building opportunity. So we'd encourage you to find your cyclists and go do stuff with them. Bike repair, bike share, bike valet, kind of all variations on a similar theme. Here's an example of a pop-up bike shop, I think in Texas. And this was us, just with a group on the streets and sidewalks during a Better Block event in Kentucky. And the amazing thing is, there's no better way to attract a crowd than people doing stuff. Because other people have a sense of interest and fascination about how stuff is done. So informal bike parking, another technique to look at. It could be as simple as a bar between sawhorses like this. I think that's a bike valet too. Or just a bar against a wall that people could attach their bikes to. Easy, inexpensive stuff you can do to send a message to the cyclists that you're welcome here. Plant trees. It's important. Maybe overlooked, but we're saying whenever you bring trees into the urban environment, it creates a sense of enclosure. Street trees also protect pedestrians. Jeff Speck has done some great work on that in his book, Walkable City. Reforming, also from the book of Speck, that we want to reinstate edges where they've been lost. This is an example of Glass Street from Chattanooga, where they've done some really innovative placemaking work. And you can see for the pedestrians or the passersby how now instead of this hole, you have something framing the edge and you feel a little bit more comfortable. Sharrows. Anyone have sharrows in your town? Good knowledge of what those are? Good. Well, this is Mike Lydon, author of Tactical Urbanism, illegally doing a sharrow in Middlesboro, Kentucky. And he just happened, by the way, he had so much fun with it, and like the picture he put in his book, I think it's like page 5. So behind him, I'll point out, is a parklet and 2 pop-up shops. So one of the themes you'll see as we progress is a lot of these interventions are best when they're grouped together to kind of get a critical mass of activities happening in one place. That's the finished product of the Sharrow. You can do it too. Guerrilla wayfinding. Wonderful group, Walk Your City. How many have Walk Your City signs? And by the way, I'll say the customs and the immigration folks were very nice at the airport, but for this presentation I only brought one prop, and here it is. But this is an example of the sign that you can order. When you go to walkyourcity.com, you can customize a sign between any point and any other point, and customize the message too, that it's a 6-minute walk to a museum. It's a 3-minute walk to a great cup of coffee. And you put these all over your town, and they can encourage walking, but also cycling too. There's QR codes on each, so you can measure the analytics of how many people are using these. At the time we put these in, we had the largest deployment behind San Antone. Where's San Antone? All right, so you're number 1. Are you still number 1? Okay, cool. So when we all go there next year, we're going to check out the Walk Your City sign. By the way, the next one of these conferences is in San Antone, so make her your best friend. So she'll tell you all the good places to eat. So with that, moving on, D-Pave, very popular West Coast. Any D-Pavers here? I'm still waiting to meet one. It's going to be so exciting. But basically, they do what they say. You know, they tear up concrete, they tear up asphalt, and they convert it to usable space. Community gardens. So we know this movement, very popular in New York City, especially when, you know, they had the really tough times in the 70s where people were reclaiming vacant, underutilized lots, but it was a great community building function too. Anyone wants to read more about it, I'd suggest the book Naked City. It's not what you think. It's by a sociologist. It's a really good read, though. And she talks about the community garden movement, business improvement districts, and a lot of other things, and has some great analysis there. Farmers markets. So how many of you have a farmers market? Like basically everyone, right? Thousands of them. And you know, you have the high design here, which is nice. This is an example from my home, from Detroit, of Eastern Market, which just underwent a very exciting transformation. But I'm using this slide to point out the importance of local food. It's a growing movement. The EPA has done a ton of work around it. I think you're going to see this as a rising trend moving forward. I suggest the Local Economy Revolution, if you haven't read it, which talks about locally owned import substitution rather than importing all these products from outside. Let's make more of our own products, and that's how we're going to help our economies grow. Moving on, food carts and trucks. It can be a really cool feature. This is an example, by the way, from my friend over here. We were talking before of pre-vitalization. So before you do your $100 million project, put in a food court like this to demonstrate how this use would occur on the streets and test market demand to see if these types of restaurants or cafes or whatever else work in that space. I'd encourage all of you to do that. Pallet gardens, a really fun project. Anyone can do it. Here's some of our pallet gardens, a few different ways. We actually did the trellis, the box, and just the pallet lined with landscaper fabric with the high-grade potting soil. Don't use the cheap soil, use the good stuff. It's worth it, trust me. But it's a great way to bring agriculture even into the most urban of areas. And by the way, this is a slightly evolved version of our Gorilla Historic Registry in incorporating the blown-up images to talk about the history of the town. Any of you can do that. That's paint on metal and then drilled onto the wall, but it just adds such a nice touch to the town. And again, these tactics group. Pop-up cafes. So we opened this pop-up cafe, no permits, but we got away with it because everything was given away for free. We took donations, but you can do it too. But this is an example, the day of, we set our price list, we put it on the board, and we basically sold out. We actually made a profit in our first day of operations at the Slice of Art pop-up cafe. And then it closed 2 days later. That's another story. So rain gardens, really appealing to those environmental values. I think it's growing increasingly important, especially in our flood-prone areas. So how we can reclaim public space. They're doing a little de-paving there too. I'd like to see some urban agriculture. They're not quite there, but there's potential. Suspended trees. Anyone have suspended trees or know where they're from? Mass Mocha in North Adams. I'll be going there in a few weeks. R&D, remember? Rip off and do, well, we got that idea. So we had the first ever suspended azalea, and that's my wife hanging it there. It's just a design feature. It's a little bit of whimsy, a little bit of happy, as we like to call it. And you can see them hanging there, and all the everyone's smiling in that picture. So it's just a fun thing. Places need them. Urban agriculture. Great example from Orlando. Any Orlando folks here? All right. So this is indoor market space, but what they did was they extended out onto the sidewalk and had a very sophisticated agricultural operation. So they were making some of their own products that they were selling in the store and using at the restaurant on site. I'm just including these. If you like it, go back, look at the slides after I'm done. But the interpretation they used on the site, talking about their philosophy, their production method, composting, it was a really smart way to educate the public while doing something that was really cool and innovative. So it brings us to pallets, pallet chairs. If you're not an expert in this yet, you will be. So it starts with a pallet. All of you have them. You just got to find them, find the good ones. HT, heat treated, not MB, chemically treated. Don't use those. Use the HT ones. But you can cut them up. This is a pallet kit. Once that work's done, here's a group of people, not unlike yourself, putting it together. And then in order, my first pallet chair. My first pallet chair rebuilt. Probably second or third generation in New Jersey. So we've come a long way from that first one. There's a 16-page guide. If you ask me, I'll share it with you about how you can build these too. When you put them on the sidewalk like this, it's called chair bombing. Remember that line from Holly White. People tend to sit where there's places to sit. Well, this is a way to get them to sit for cheap or even free. I think I had $20 tied up in one of those. Spool tables, even simpler. You don't even have to cut it. You just put it out. So here's an example from one of our pop-up parks in Kentucky. And you can see how they were repurposed to give that furniture element. Similarly, street seating. This is the example from Glass Street in Chattanooga. Very cool. I'm kind of curious how they dealt with copyright issues. But it's fun. It adds whimsy. Of course, I'd like to see people sitting on it, but we'll go back next trip, maybe. Games, very important, especially when we're trying to engage youth and younger people. How many of you have one of these? Awesome. Where are you from? Phoenix. Very cool. I'm about to buy probably, 2 or 3 of these from our plaza that we're building. The chest, the oversized chest, do you have one of them? Yeah. You all should, by the way. It can cost $800 to $1,000, even a little up, but as a programming element, once you have it, you put it in this space, a way to manage it, that you're constantly activating the space, and you personally don't necessarily need to be there. So it's just a smart thing to do. This is from Bryant Park, their game cart, and we're, by the way, stealing this idea in the town I'm in now, and we're building one as we speak. All the different games in it, the attendant. It's a way to activate that space and give people something to do. Some people may plan to go there to do it. Others might just show up and have some fun. Pop-up parks. So one of the things I'm a big advocate is sod bombing. So find the ugliest parking lot, gravel lot you've got, put a little bit of dirt down, maybe put a tarp down, then some dirt, and then lay the sod. Voila, you got a park. And people playing it. This is an example from Atlanta, which I thought was really interesting, with kind of miniature golf, or it's a little bit more adult-oriented with a putting green there, but a really smart way to have something fun to do that draws people in, but also low maintenance because you're not having to mow your lawn. Pop-up dog parks. I love this picture. You like this picture, everyone? This could be in your town. So I think I stole it from Seattle. You can see the Bryant Park chair in the background. So give credit where credit is due. But dogs need space too, so let's think about that. Pop-up shops, one of my favorites. An example of two of our pop-up shops in Kentucky. These spaces have been closed 5 to 10 years. Any of you have vacant or abandoned buildings that storefronts aren't filled? If all you don't raise your hand, I'm going to say you're a very dishonest lot. I mean, maybe a few of you, but you know, what you can do is ask the owner, let me use the space for 3 months. We're testing this idea out. Where's the Memphis folks? MemFix, awesome program where they go through some training. I think they get $5,000 in a free space for 6 months. Yeah. More or less.
We have a couple of different options.
Great.
We're working on another one right now.
Great.
So we just had someone become a permanent tenant after.
Terrific. So look at Memphis and MemFix. And I'm sorry, what's your program?
Open on Main is the current one.
Great. Very successful, probably one of the most successful examples in the country. I use it all the time. This is our pop-up. We called it the Palace, which was named after the saloon that was located there in 1890. But we borrowed the name, even their sign design from 1890, and we invited 60 Appalachian artisans to put their products on display while they got entrepreneurial training to start businesses. Mobile vendors. Great example, Airstream trailer. They're doing dynamite work in a very nondescript parking lot, but it activated that space. Another example from Traverse City, Food Cart Court, with several of the food carts around that. Alley conversions. Anyone have alleys? You working with them? Yes? Good. Very important. My friend Jim shared this example from his town of Princeton. And Jim is a supporter of this project. A donor, yeah. So you're a public space philanthropist. So do you want to say something real quick?
The thing that's interesting is this is called Poets Alley, so they have poetry that's on the speakers, and touch exhibit, and then a green wall. And the sound really draws people in. They hear it when they're walking by.
Yeah, it's an awesome spot. You all should go there. And then also an alley transformation. This is in the town I'm in now, Metuchen, where we put the lights overhead. It's a small thing. Those are actually lampshades, which we call shopping chandeliers. We put them out before Small Business Saturday to kind of get people excited, and we sold 150 grand of product that Saturday. So little things like that you can segue into some commercial activities that help the businesses in your downtown. It can really pay off in a big way. So. And with that, public transportation, an example also from Princeton, taking a nondescript space, you know, with the right kind of treatment, it can really make it a show place. It can add to the street life, lots of opportunities there. Parklets, what would it be if we didn't say something about parklets? Where's my friend from West Palm? Loved it when I was there a few years ago. And they brought music and tied to the cafe. And whenever you put one of these in, the revenues of the neighboring businesses like double or triple. Because it attracts so much more street traffic and interest. So a really wonderful civic improvement. How many have parklets? Okay, so a few of you, but it's a growing movement. So take a parking space, put activity in it. It brings your street to life. This is a second or third generation. This was a bump out, you know, so complete streets. But they came around and parkletified it in Traverse City with some cool benches and, as you can see, the wall feature there. So, you know, you can even take existing spaces and make them more livable for folks. Stencils, we also like to call positive graffiti. This is probably the most used picture of any that I've worked with. It's good to be here. Candy Chang out of New Orleans started this movement. You can do it too. Just put it on a stencil, spray paint, put it all over your downtown. If people don't like it, you can blame it on me, but if they love it, take all the credit. So another example when we did our Better Block. And my last slide, urban trails. Anyone know this? We were talking before. This is Boston, the Freedom Trail, which generates $1 billion of revenue every year. Like, how much in taxes is that for the local government? How much in sales is that for the businesses? A lot. And it started 50 years ago with a roller and paint, and you can do it too.